wanted to ask you, have you done a dialogue like what I taught you guys how to do in the other class? Do you want to go over one of those?
Yeah, that'd be great. I got a few. One was just pretty generic, but it was me asking, "Good morning, how was your weekend?" to one of my employees, and said my weekend was good. We spent most of the weekend home. Said, "Well, that sounds relaxing, at least." He said it was. How was your weekend? And I said, because it was warm, we spent it outside.
All right, hold on 1 second here. Okay, so let's go through this again. So what do we have?
Good morning. How was your weekend? So I know the most part of that I wrote, good morning, buenos días, ¿cuál es tu fin de semana?
Here I would say, ¿qué tal tu fin de semana? There's a few different ways you could say it. ¿Cuál means which? So you wouldn't say ¿cuál es tu fin de semana? That's like saying which is your weekend. ¿Qué tal tu fin de semana? We learned that as kind of a greeting earlier.
Yeah.
And ¿qué tal is kind of like saying what's up or what's happening, right? How's it going? It's a little bit more versatile than that. So it would be very appropriate to say that here. ¿Qué tal tu fin de semana?
Tal tu fin de semana. Okay. He said my weekend was good. He said my weekend was good. We spent most of the weekend at home.
Quedamos en casa. All right, so one thing here, just to point out here.
We stayed home.
We haven't learned the past tense yet.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of a tricky thing, right? Because naturally it's what people use in a conversation, right? I'm happy to kind of just at least help you translate this type of stuff, I would advise for the time being, as you're going through these types of things, to look at that. And if you could just flip things into the present tense, it'll just make it a little bit more relevant to what we're doing in class and to helping you develop the fluency there. But yeah, just so you know, this is how you would say these things in the past tense without getting into a big, long explanation of how to say these, into the full past tense.
So I guess which part became past tense? I see.
Fue.
Fue.
And then quedamos is also in the past tense. It's luckily, since you said we is the same in the present tense and the past tense here.
Oh, okay. Okay, so quedamos. Yeah, that's the one I thought looked present tense, but okay, it works both ways. Okay.
For AR verbs, it works both ways.
Okay. So after that, I said, that sounds relaxing.
Me suena.
Me suena.
Me suena relajante.
Me suena. That sounds really good. Okay. And then it was. How was your weekend? So I don't know how to say it was, but at least know the second part is ¿Qué tal tu fin de semana? Si fue. And then fin de semana. And I said it, I guess let me put it in the current tense.
So
it was warm.
Just so you know, right up here we said my weekend was good. Mi fin de semana fue bueno. And here you're saying it was. Sí, fue.
Sí fue.
Sí, saying like yes. And then fue. Remember, once you've established the context of a conversation in Spanish, you typically leave out the subject, right? So you could just see, sí fue.
Okay, sí fue.
Or sí, mi fin de semana fue relajante.
Okay, so sí fue. Okay. And then I said it was warm, so we spent time outside. It was good.
And then let me give you, actually, I'm going to change this to say así fue. Así fue.
Así fue. Okay.
¿Qué tal tu fin de semana? And then what did you say?
It was warm, so we spent time outside. It was good. ¿Qué tal? Bueno. Cálido is warm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it was warm. Así que pasamos tiempo afuera. Fue bueno. Okay. All right.
Cool. Do you want to take a screenshot of that, or?
I actually got it written down. I was waiting for. I was leaving space in my book.
Right. So that's the whole dialogue you wrote?
Yeah, I got another one that's more. It was more work related.
Before we get to that.
Yeah.
So one thing that I like to do, you know, this ties into the vocabulary activity too, right? So that's part of the purpose that we're doing here, is trying to identify the words that you're using. Okay.
Okay.
So you know, we're seeing certain patterns emerge here, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you've used this word on multiple occasions. Now, without getting into it, this is the verb ser, which means to be. There's two verbs that mean to be in Spanish. This is one of them. And the entire next level is dedicated to trying to figure out when to use which. So, but for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that ser would be to be, right? Now, you're using it a lot in the third person here, so that's the only thing I'm going to do here for you. All right. So this is an activity. You can make your own little flashcard dedicated to this, right?
Yeah.
Start learning that verb, because it is apparently something that you're going to use a lot.
It was. Boy. Okay.
Right. And then we've just, you know, identified something else here, right? So, ¿qué tal? Can mean how's it going? It can also mean how was, whatever it is.
Okay.
And that's good to learn right off the bat, because, you know, if you're working with some Spanish speakers, right, that you see them on Monday, this is a very natural conversation that you would want to have with them, right? One of your guys tells you that they went to the Rockies game yesterday. ¿Qué tal el juego? ¿Qué tal el partido? It was the weekend. ¿Qué tal el fin de semana? Right? I went to a wedding ¿Qué tal la boda? Right? Whatever event that happened in the past, you just say ¿Qué tal? Plus whatever it was. You do it with the food, right? If the guys are coming back from lunch, ¿Qué tal la comida? How was the food?
Versatile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. ¿Qué tal?
All right, let's see here. We've identified some other words that we might not use very often, right? Relaxing. Relajante. Warm. Cálido. Outside. Afuera. And now you're getting some other verbs. To stay. Quedar. To spend time. Pasar. Tiempo.
Tiempo. So I'd follow the same. If I'm spending time, it'd be paso tiempo. If you're spending time, pasas tiempo.
Those are regular verbs. Yep.
Okay. And then quedar. So we learned in the last thing it was quedarse, right? So is that
it is quedarse. I'm simplifying it a little bit. Quedarse
okay.
is something that's called a reflexive verb. We're going to get into that in the third level of Spanish, so I don't want to get into that just quite yet.
Okay. So quedar.
To sound. Now, to sound is sonar. This is what we call an irregular verb. This is called a stem changing verb. Again, we get into this in the third level as well. So without getting into a whole lot of detail, right? We see how it's being used here. Me suena. And that's like saying that sounds to me. We wouldn't necessarily to me in English, we wouldn't say that. But so you see here in the parentheses, I put this UE.
Yeah.
Now look at the verb. It's just an O. This parentheses here means that the base, the stem, is going to change in the conjugation too. So again, it's something a little bit further in the future, but hey, we've touched on it, so we can go ahead and at least introduce it to you, right? These are regular verbs. So when we come across regular verbs, you've now gone through the full verb conjugation. You could create a flashcard dedicated to this, right? Yo quedo, tú quedas, él queda, ella queda, nosotros quedamos, ellos quedan. To spend time, pasar. Yo paso, tú pasas, él pasa, ella pasa, nosotros pasamos, ellos pasan, right? For the irregular verbs, just for now, you can familiarize yourself with the infinitive. Okay. You don't have to get into the full conjugation because the full conjugation has some other complexity in there that I don't want to quite get into just yet.
Okay.
Right. And so here's some categories, here's a great category for you to talk about, right? Now start thinking about, so what are you talking about here? What you did on the weekend, in other words, your free time. Mm-hmm. So you can start adding to this list, Mateo. You didn't talk about it in this dialogue, but you can see that it's a topic of conversation that's going to be important for you. What other activities do you do in your free time? And start adding that to your vocabulary list, to your custom vocabulary list, right? And just ask yourself, and write those activities down, and then start looking those verbs up, because they may or may not be words that I'm going to teach you next week or the week after that, but they are probably words that you're going to need to talk about right away. And so that's how we this all corresponds. Hopefully you've done your reasons why you're studying Spanish, and now you're starting to do dialogues. More than likely your dialogues are based off of your reasons, right? And then your vocabulary list starts coming directly out of those dialogues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's helpful.
Do you have all this down?
Yeah, I got it written down.
Cool. All right, so now you had another dialogue.
I do. That one is. This one's more work related, but I think it's more in the current tense. Oh no, it's not really. It's in the past tense again. How did today go? So like at the end of the day, I was talking to an employee and asked, how did the day go?
Okay. And
I could also say, how is the day, if we want to keep it in the present tense.
I was going to say, how is it going? Just
how is it going? Yep.
Right. And so here you could say, ¿Cómo te va?
¿Cómo te va? And then the other person said, it's going okay, but we are behind in frames, which is a department. We call it frentes. Although it doesn't translate to that, we just call it frentes.
Okay. So when you're saying okay, are you really saying not that good? Or are you really saying?
Yep, they were kind of saying, yeah, it's okay, but we're behind in that department.
So I would say más o menos. Although bien might be okay, pero estamos atrasados. What do you call it? Frentes?
Frentes. That's just what they're called face frames. That's a department. It's like the front of the cabinet, basically. So
okay.
Frentes.
I mean, that makes more sense than if it's the front frames or the face frames, because la frente is your forehead, actually.
Oh.
So if they're calling it la frente, the face, that makes sense. And if that's what they're calling it, then
yep. Atrasados. Frentes.
So you would call it frames in English, and they would call it the faces in Spanish. Interesting.
Yeah. So, pero estamos atrasados. Atrasados is behind?
Yeah, like delayed.
Delayed, okay. Atrasados.
Behind schedule.
So basically, I don't know how we can write this in the present tense, but I asked, how did that department get behind, or how did frames get behind schedule?
I'll give you a really simple way to say it. All right. So I'm going to just change that to say what is happening.
Yeah. Okay.
And you could say, ¿Qué pasa?
That's easy. ¿Qué pasa?
There's another reason why I like to do this too, just because I learned early on, sometimes you just have to try and simplify what exactly you're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do this with my students because I'm good at kind of simplifying what you're, looking for alternative ways.
Okay.
where you're essentially expressing the same thing. You're just slightly.
Yeah.
Right.
Que pasa? What happened? Okay.
Pasa.
So he said we had 2 employees absent and 1 leave early.
So again, just changing it to the present tense for you.
Yep.
So dos empleados están ausentes y uno se va temprano.
So there's ostenses again, and then 1 is leaving. Se va temprano is early.
Yep, muy bien.
Okay. I basically asked, do we have a plan? Do we have a plan to catch up is what I said, but do we have a plan? Tenemos actualizarnos.
Actualizarnos.
So what does that mean?
To catch up.
To catch up? Okay.
Yeah, and it can be used to catch up, to make current. So actual, this is a false cognate for you, by the way. Actual does not mean actual. It means current. Current, right? So actualizarnos, it's the verb actualizarse, which means to catch up, to make current, to update. So like if your computer starts doing software updates, it would be actualizar. So yes.
Okay. Actualizarnos. And he basically said we have 3 people coming in at 5 a.m. tomorrow.
We're going to say mañana 2 times there.
De la mañana.
And just so you don't confuse yourself, let's put that at front. Mañana. So tomorrow is mañana. Morning is la mañana.
Okay.
So that's why I'm just flipping it to the front. Mañana, tomorrow, 3 personas vienen a las 5 de la mañana.
Okay. Okay. There's no like in Espanol, no AM, PM, like 5 a.m. It's
you can say AMA or PM.
Okay. Cinco AM.
But I'd never hear Spanish people say that.
Okay. So cinco de la mañana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would it be de la noche for PM?
De la tarde. A las 5 de la tarde.
Tarde. Okay.
Yeah, their idea of night and afternoon is not quite the same as our idea of night and afternoon.
Yeah, you said their night goes later, right?
Their afternoon basically goes until
Okay, so that was the whole conversation.
Like I give classes, I give classes typically until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
And I say, I don't work, or I stop working at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and people say, yeah, but don't you have any classes in the afternoon? I give classes at 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. I just don't do it past 4. So yeah, it's fun. Is that everything?
That is everything.
All right, cool. So again, you're seeing some patterns emerge here in terms of the vocabulary that you need to learn faster than others, right? One is the verb ir has come up quite a bit. Ir. To go, right? Now remember, super irregular. Yo voy, tú vas, él va. Él or ella va.
Okay.
And this is the third person, which also serves to talk about it, right? So in this very first question, how's it going? ¿Cómo te va? You're also using here in Spanish, again, it's just a little disconnect from Spanish and English. We would say, how's it going? In Spanish, you have to say, how's it going for you? So that's why the te is in there, right? And don't confuse these with the subject pronouns yo y tú, which means I and you. These are what we call object pronouns. Technically, these are indirect object pronouns, which means for you or for me, to you or to me.
Okay.
Simply you or me. So not interchangeable with yo y tú.
Okay.
All right. So again, ¿cómo te va? And he's answering, va más o menos, right? Technically, okay would be, bien. But if it's in the context of like, it's okay, but really not that good, there's where you could say más o menos.
Okay.
Let's see here. ¿Qué pasa? What's happening? Again, we're seeing that verb pasar. Now, check it out. We just learned pasar means to spend time. Pasar also means to happen. Let's see here. It looks like we've got some other vocabulary that's kind of showing up in terms of atrasado, right? Late, behind, schedule, delayed, however you want to interpret that. You've got temprano, early, and I might as well give you tarde is another way of saying late, just slightly different than atrasado. Late is in late in the day versus atrasado meaning late behind schedule.
Okay.
Ausente, absent, and I might as well give you the opposite, presente, present, a tiempo, on time. Because if you're dealing with employees, schedules, right?
Yep. So presente, ausentes.
Ausente.
Ausentes. Okay. Ausente, presente, a tiempo. Okay.
All right. You've got plan. Super hard. Plan. And then our verbs, Actualizarse. Catch up, update, whatever.
So that's a verb.
Actualizarse. It's an AR verb. And this little SE means that it's a reflexive verb. Again, we get into that in the future. And that's one of those things, like you don't necessarily have to use it the most grammatically correct way to get started. If you don't say the SE on the, you'll be understood. It doesn't matter that much. My college professors would be rolling over in their, they would be cringing to hear me say that, but honestly.
That's fine.
And we will learn the right way to say it in the future. It's just weird, so we're not going to get into it now.
Okay. So
Venir.
What's that? Vienen? No.
And I'm putting venir. It's another one of those stem changing verbs. It's also, I'm putting this little asterisk next to it just to let you know that it's irregular in the first person. So it's yo vengo. We have to add a G there. Tú vienes. So there you see the IE goes into play there. Tú vienes. Tú vienes. You come. So venir means to come.
Yo vengo.
I come. Tú vienes. You come. Here we saw they come. Ellos vienen. Tres personas vienen.
Okay.
So again, start building your list. Now that you're starting to identify certain patterns here, there's certain verbs that we use to talk about our free time. There's other verbs that you're starting to see that you use at work, right? And this is what's really going to help you start speaking to people. Because I'm going to keep teaching you Spanish, but it's not necessarily going to be these words. At the same time, these are the words that you are using on a daily basis, and these are the ones that you need to learn faster than others. Questions about this?
No, it's helpful.
Cool. Can I erase this?
If I do like Google Translate, let's say I looked up.
Are you okay if I erase this?
Yeah, you're good. If I looked up like to go on Google Translate, it's not going to give me it's just going to give me the affinitive, right?
Yeah.
And it won't tell me if it's irregular or not. Like,
I don't know. Like, it might. Typically, like that's what the parentheses are for.
Let me try real quick. So if I try venir, that's the biggest thing I've found trying to translate these on Google Translate. Google Translate's great if it's written down, but if I try and translate my own stuff, it kind of, I'm being told it comes out kind of not grammatically perfect.
Yeah,
it doesn't know the context or the full conversation. So
I use Google Translate all the time because I also know how to, like when I translate documents, that's what translators do actually nowadays. Google Translate saves us an incredibly large amount of time, but then we have to go in and fix all the mistakes because it's also full of mistakes. And some of them are pretty trivial. For the most part, it's pretty trivial, except for every now and then when it just completely gets something wrong or out of context.
Okay.
So, but it's a good start. It's a good start. It's better for like single words. And there's another website that I like better than Google, which is Lingue, Lingue or something like that. Because it scans multiple websites that are multilingual websites to see how they're being translated. And so I like that because it'll give you multiple reference points when you start getting into like longer phrases like that.
Okay.
It's better than Google Translate.
Linguee.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, check.
Okay, I'll give that one a go.
Cool. I got to jump because I've got another class, but I'll see you on Nos vemos el martes.
Yep.
Try and
Have a good
find a
weekend.
couple of more of those dialogues because those are really, really powerful.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, nice. Dale, cuídate.
Nos vemos.